It is impossible to sugarcoat this and tell you that there's hope for Republicans here in Illinois. Not only did we lose every statewide office, but we lost badly down ballot as well. Illinois Senate and House Republicans suffered debilitating defeats on election night, prompting House GOP leader Jim Durkin to resign the day after the election, and Senate GOP leader Dan McConchie to resign less than a week later. In fact, on Monday morning, the morning after our show, the losses leave Republicans in both chambers irrelevant in Springfield. Totally irrelevant, and gives Democrats a comfortable supermajority once again. And on the Senate side, 34 Democrats ran unopposed, meaning there was no Republican challenger on November's ballot. 34 Democrats ran unopposed. This, ladies and gentlemen, is unacceptable. In media interviews after announcing his resignation as House GOP leader, State Representative Jim Durkin of Western Springs attempted to place all of the blame on the 45th President of the United States, Donald J. Trump. He said, and I quote, "As long as we continue to say that we are the party of Trump and that we have to abide by the party principles in the platform, 100% we're going to continue down this path of losing." End of quote, said Jim Durkin. But I'd like to counter that awful quote with this. But pointing fingers and blaming others is exactly why Illinois House Republicans are in the super minority. And Jim Durkin has no one else to blame but himself. And blaming the former president does nothing but distract from his own leadership failures. Look over there and not at me. Blaming Donald Trump is a play out of the Democrats' playbook. So why are Republicans using it as well? If there was ever a case for collusion, this would be it. Republicans borrowing attack lines from the Democrats. And in the end, it's the people of Illinois who lose, especially Republican voters. There are a lot of reasons why Republicans in Illinois lost the election. $100 million directed at the campaigns of two candidates, leaving a lack of funding for down-ballot candidates. A divided GOP. A weak candidate at the top of the ticket whose race was called within minutes of the polls closing. No mail-in ballot program. And weak voter integrity initiatives centered around Election Day. And we can't ignore the impact the abortion issue had on this election. Can't ignore it. It energized the Democratic base, labeled pro-life Republicans as extremists, and drove suburban women in masses to vote either early, by mail-in ballot, or actually on Election Day. If Illinois Republicans want to start winning again, it's going to take a united party, a diversified pool of money. We can't have two billionaires focusing all their money on just two candidates. We need to diversify that pool of money, and we need an emphasis on building a robust mail-in ballot program. Go head-to-head with the Democrats. Traditional marketing, traditional commercials, traditional mailers, traditional walk pieces, those are okay, but it's not going to move the needle. We need a mail-in ballot program. It's also, ladies and gentlemen, going to take new Illinois GOP leadership. And it is why I am calling on Illinois GOP Chairman Don Tracy to resign. Resign now. The people of Illinois need to know that the GOP is serious about rebuilding and putting the best team in place to win. It's critical. If Don Tracy as chairman can take credit for victories, then he most certainly can take responsibility for losses, and the losses were many. Virtually, think about this, virtually the entire House GOP leadership team either lost or retired. As Capitol News' Peter Hancock notes, Deputy Minority Leaders Dan Brady and Tom Demmer were both defeated in their bids for statewide offices. Assistant Minority Leader Avery Bourne ran for lieutenant governor with gubernatorial candidate Richard Irvin, but was defeated in the primary. State Representative Keith Wheeler, also an assistant minority leader, was defeated for re-election. Minority Conference Chairman Dan Welter was defeated for re-election in the primary. Minority Floor Leader Mark Batnick didn't run for re-election. And Assistant Minority Leader Tim Butler is resigning at year's end for a private sector job. House GOP Leader Jim Durkin and Senate Minority Leader Dan McConchie resigning their leadership positions is not enough. Don Tracy is a businessman who, along with his siblings, run the nation's largest redistributor of food and related products. That business employs 6,000 people in the U.S. and in Canada. Now, do you think they got here by rewarding losing sales teams? Do you think they got here by consistently rewarding sales managers who fail to meet their quotas? Do you think they got here by keeping the bar and the standard low by saying, well, maybe sales will get better next year? We had a good team, but maybe it'll get better next year. The Illinois GOP is not a family business. We don't report to you. You report to us, Mr. Chairman, the people. And now, after Tuesday's election, the Illinois GOP is a national joke. And hate to break it to you, but as chairman of the Illinois Republican Party, you bear responsibility. The buck stops here. The buck stops with you. Show us, Mr. Chairman, that you can lead by resigning now. We can't win otherwise. And ladies and gentlemen, if you need further proof of that, every Friday evening, the chairman sends out the chairman's memo. And none of it focused where the election is actually won, which is in Chicago and the Collier counties. His entire chairman's memo focused on tiny municipal races 4 or 5 hours south of Chicago. And in this memo, he's talking about little municipal races, winning county board seats. But these are Republican areas. These victories are no surprise. And I can guarantee you that the Illinois GOP infrastructure is not responsible for these victories. The people and their communities are responsible for those Republican victories. But in this past Friday's memo, nothing in the chairman's memo bears any responsibility whatsoever. In fact, it's just like you, I was very disappointed in the overall results of our Illinois elections. Just like you, well, you're not us. You're the chairman of the Illinois GOP. Your job is for us to win, or to put us in a position to win. And you spent an entire year talking about how this big red wave is coming, about how Republicans were well positioned. And furthermore, you talk about, in particular, was a bright spot. Madison County, in particular, was a bright spot in an otherwise dismal election in Illinois. If a party chairman is using the words dismal and I am disappointed just like you, it's time to go. Again, I am calling on Don Tracy, chairman of the Illinois GOP, to resign. We need a new team. You're listening to Mark My Words. We'll be right back.